Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about Facebook's WhatsApp and Apple's iMessage because they are both deeply vulnerable to FBI searches. Here's what's going on. This is coming from Rolling Stone, and this is, well, something I've been talking about for quite some time, but now we've got internal FBI documents that show just how easy it is. Now, a previously unreported FBI document obtained by Rolling Stone, the FBI claims that it's particularly easy to harvest data from WhatsApp and iMessage from Facebook and Apple respectively, obviously as long as the FBI has a warrant or a subpoena. Now, judging by this document, and I quote Chief Technology Officer at the Center for Democracy and Technology, Mallory Nodal, the most popular encrypted messaging apps, iMessage and WhatsApp, are also the most permissive. Now, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, as you know, has articulated the privacy-focused vision built around WhatsApp, the most popular messaging app in the world. And Apple's CEO Tim Cook has also said that that privacy is a, quote, basic human right, and that Apple believes in, quote, giving the user transparency and control, a philosophy that extends to the iMessage app. And we will get to that because, lordy lord, it really doesn't. Now, obviously, for things like journalists, activists, government critics, dissidents, all of that, having good and secure messaging systems are very, very important, keeping it away from the prying eyes of the government, so they shouldn't be using these two. Now, while the FBI this document raises no questions about the app's ability to keep out, like, let's say, attackers or other kinds of criminals, the paper does describe how law enforcement agencies have multiple legal pathways to extract sensitive data from the most popular secure messaging tools. The document is entitled Lawful Access and was prepared jointly by the Bureau's Science and Technology Branch and Operational Technology Division, and it offers a window into the FBI's ability to legally obtain vast amounts of data from the world's most popular messaging apps, many of which, obviously, as I've mentioned, hype security and encryption. The document was dated January 7th, 2021, interestingly enough, a day after the January 6th Capitol riot. You see where I'm going with that. Now, this internal FBI guide to what kinds of data basically state and law enforcement agencies can request from 9 of the largest messaging apps. Obviously, in the wake of January 6th, they are looking for this kind of information. They hit up everybody, including Signal, who actually couldn't give them anything. More on that in a moment. Legal experts and technologists who reviewed this document, I have not seen it for the record, say that it's rare to get such detailed information from the government's point of view about, essentially, their access into these kinds of messaging platforms. In the view of the FBI, however, WhatsApp is a wellspring of private user data. According to this FBI's lawful access document, WhatsApp will provide more practically real-time information about a user and their activities than nearly every other major secure messaging tool. A subpoena will yield only basic subscriber information, according to this FBI document. Presented with a search warrant, WhatsApp will turn over address book contacts for a targeted user, as well as other WhatsApp users who have targeted individuals in their contacts, according to the FBI. But WhatsApp is unique in how quickly it can produce data to law enforcement agencies in response to a so-called pen register, a surveillance request that captures the source and destination of each message for a targeted individual. WhatsApp will provide certain user metadata, though not actual message content, every 15 minutes in response to a pen register, according to this FBI document. Now, the FBI guide also goes on to explain that most messaging services do not or cannot do this and instead provide data with a lag and not in anything close to real time. And I quote, return data provided by companies listed below, with the exception of WhatsApp, are actually logs of latent data that are provided to law enforcement in a non-real-time manner and may impact investigations due to delivery delays. Now, a WhatsApp spokeswoman confirmed that the company's near real-time responses to a pen register are actually a thing, and they do that. But the spokeswoman added that the FBI document omits some important context, such as that the pen registers for WhatsApp do not yield actual message content and only apply in a forward-looking, not retroactive manner. Now, even without the ability to legally request message content from WhatsApp, the metadata provided by WhatsApp to law enforcement captures which users talk to one another, when they do it, and which other users they have in their address book. The handing over of this this data can have very serious consequences, obviously, for people who seek truly secure anonymous messaging, such as I mentioned, journalists working with confidential sources, those kinds of things as well, not to mention activists facing government retribution. That is a huge, huge thing that WhatsApp can give over with basically a court order, not just here in the United States, obviously other places as well. Now, as for iMessage, which is Apple's text messaging service, it comes loaded with the iPhone. It's used by 1.3 billion people worldwide, so it's no slouch in the messaging side as well. According to the FBI's lawful access document, if served with a court order or a search warrant, Apple must hand over basic subscriber information as well as 25 days worth of data about queries made in iMessage, such as what a targeted user looked up in iMessage and also which other people searched for that targeted user in the app. What it doesn't include is actual message content or whether the messages were exchanged between different users. But the amount of data available to law enforcement is potentially vastly greater even than WhatsApp if the targeted user backs up their iMessage activity to iCloud, which is Apple's online storage platform. If that's the case, according to the FBI document, then law enforcement can simply request the backups of the target's device, including the actual messages sent and received in iMessage if they're backed up into the cloud. And here's why. While Apple describes iCloud as encrypted, it comes with a massive, massive loophole. Apple holds the encryption key that can unlock user data in iCloud. So, police departments or federal agencies can request that key with a search warrant or a customer's consent to access certain user data. Essentially, while it may be encrypted as you're sending stuff up there left and right, and maybe it's encrypted against a hacker attempting to, let's say, download your entire container, Apple owns the encryption key, which means they can decrypt and see everything you've got in your iCloud. Now, this FBI guide isn't a full scope of law enforcement snooping powers, obviously. The document, for instance, doesn't touch on what happens if the police or federal agents gain access to your physical device, which means the end-to-end encryption, if they've got access to your device, is pretty irrelevant since they can just simply access it on your device. But this is really damning because you've got both Facebook and Apple out there screaming privacy, to the high heavens for these two secure apps when they quite frankly are not. Now, I brought up Signal earlier, and the reason why I brought up Signal, the messaging app, is because Signal itself will actually put out documents saying, hey, we just got a subpoena or, a warrant from, the federal judge in the United States or wherever, and they're requesting a whole bunch of information. We don't have that. We can't give that to you. We don't own the keys. We don't see the messages. We don't collect metadata. It really does matter what messaging service you're using if you want to be secure. And if you're using WhatsApp, and I've made multiple videos, podcasts, and talked about this on my radio show, you are simply, you have to simply understand you are not as secure as you say. I did a previous one a year or two ago about the artificial intelligence that Facebook was actually putting into WhatsApp to read the messages to start improving its content moderation. You can't moderate content without actually seeing the content, which means Facebook can actually see those messages, even if they're claiming they're not turning them over to the FBI. And we've known that Facebook has had some serious breaches in the past. iMessage is new on my radar. I'm not an Apple user, but obviously iMessage is a very popular platform to use. It unifies a lot of this, but if you really want privacy as you are communicating, these two aren't going to cut it. Go get yourself Signal. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, where you will be data mined by law enforcement. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well, where odds are you will be data mined by law enforcement. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.